This is America, a place where young people are fueling a boom in what's known as the prediction market. While betting on sports events is nothing new. You can now do it on the weather, the Grammys, and of course politics. And it's all creating a bit of a regulatory minefield. I'll be back with more on that later, but first, Neave in our Washington studio.
Alex, thank you. Risks, regulations, and the future of online betting. Right now, millions of Americans aren't just watching current events, they're betting hundreds of millions of dollars on them, from election outcomes to the day's weather. While federal regulators are giving these platforms a green light, state authorities are escalating a fierce legal crackdown. In the places where you can use it, it's getting pretty popular.
I trade on soccer and esports on Kalshi.
I trade daily temperatures primarily in Chicago and monthly tornado counts.
I trade on what interests me. Politics, mentions, anything.
And companies like that one, Kalshi, are getting some pretty big name endorsements too.
Predictions. I'm the special one. I see things before they happen. Miss shot of crossbar.
Hey Dan, have you heard of Kalshi?
Yeah, the prediction market that lets you trade anything from sports to alien sightings.
Alien sightings? When does that happen?
All right, well, let's take a look at the sheer scale of what we're talking about, because prediction markets are one of the fastest growing spaces in finance and have exploded in the US over the last few years. Platforms Kalshi and Polymarket dominate the American market. Analysis by the Pew Research Center here shows the combined monthly global trading volume across the two platforms, then a dramatic shift in popularity, rising from less than $5 billion in September of 2025 to about $24 billion in April of this year, an upward trend that is only gaining momentum, with some analysts putting that figure in the trillions by 2030. Well, before we move on, it's worth explaining what prediction markets actually are. To do that, we asked Alex Baird.
Prediction markets like Polymarket and Kalshi give you the ability to bet on practically anything online, generally around a yes or no question. You could bet on whether it's going to rain tomorrow, who's going to win the FIFA World Cup, or will Donald Trump say the word McDonald's during his next address. When I say anything, I mean anything. It's all structured around the idea of an event contract. So let's use Polymarket as an example. We jump on using our mobile phone, we set up an account and load up some cash. Polymarket trades in a cryptocurrency called USDC, which is pegged to the US dollar. We stroll through all the different scenarios we can place a bet on, all those contracts. How about, will President Trump win the 2026 Nobel Peace Prize? If the market is pricing the odds at 54%, the contract costs 54 cents. Sounds good, so we buy it. If Trump wins, we get the full dollar back, a 46-cent profit. Extrapolate that out to 1,000 contracts, you buy them for $540 and he wins, we get $1,000 back. You get the idea. But if he doesn't win, we lose everything. Now, Kalshi and Polymarket are two of the biggest platforms online, but there are plenty of other options across the web specializing in different types of prediction or using different rules. Their use is either banned, blocked, or partially restricted in dozens of countries across the globe, with allegations it's all just gambling. There are concerns also that people are making bets when they know something is about to happen. That's insider trading, highly illegal. So the question now, will more countries or US states move to restrict or ban the use of those prediction markets? And guess what? I checked. You can bet on that too.
Well, a huge battle between the states and the US federal government is being waged over these prediction markets. Critics say companies like Kalshi and Polymarket are essentially gambling platforms, but they argue that their users are not placing bets. They're making a prediction on the probable outcome of an event. Some US states are attempting to crack down on them because they say the platforms are attempting to bypass state-level gambling regulations. Here's Mike Hanna with more.
Master Sergeant Gannon Ken van Dijk will stand trial later this year. His alleged crime to use classified information about the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to place a winning bet on Polymarket, winning $400,000. Congress is actively working to address concerns regarding the use of insider information to bet on the prediction platforms. In April this year, the US Senate banned members and staff from betting on prediction markets. In May, Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz signed the nation's first law banning prediction sites, and other states are debating whether to follow suit. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission sued to block the Minnesota law because it argued the sites are subject to federal oversight, not state gambling laws. And President Trump posted on social media his insistence that the federal government has exclusive authority over prediction markets. And they will thrive, he continues. Under my leadership, we are setting rules of the road that are the gold standard for the states.
The whole world, unfortunately, has become somewhat of a casino. And you look at what's going on all over the world, in Europe and every place they're doing these betting things. I was never much in favor of it. I don't like it conceptually, but it is what it is.
The president's son, Donald Trump Jr., is an advisor to prediction market platforms and a major investor in Polymarket.
Virtually anything can become a prediction now. Punters can bet on whether there'll be a human footprint on Mars before 2035. Will TikTok be banned? Will there be a government shutdown or rates increase before the end of the year? Will a meteor hit DC before Christmas? And will President Trump say the word witch hunt before the end of the month?
And of course, there will be betting on elections, in particular the upcoming and critical midterms. The question is whether the predictions will follow voting patterns or form them. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Washington.
OK, let's introduce our guest panel. Ryan Bourne is public policy economist at the Cato Institute, and Stan Veuger is senior fellow in economic policy studies at the American Enterprise Institute. Good to have you both on the programme. So we heard from Donald Trump saying that all the world is a casino. Presumably we're all potential players then. Starting with you, Ryan, how do you explain this boom in people betting on world events?
Well, I think prediction markets have a number of different uses. So obviously the major revenue driver for these companies at the moment is people betting on sports and entertainment. I think that is just another form of gambling, albeit betting against other users with the platform as the mediator. But I think it's important to recognise that prediction markets have a potentially really socially useful value, which is in helping us understand what experts and what people putting up their own money believe is going to happen in terms of real-world events, whether that be weather events, whether it be what's going to happen in politics, legislative agendas. And on that side, I think prediction markets can play a useful role in that they kind of price in and show you where experts and where people putting up their own money think things are going to happen. And that provides socially useful information to the rest of us.
Well, that's what these sites are claiming. So Polymarket and Kalshi argue that they aren't gambling sites. They are data tools mapping out probabilities. Is that a fair distinction, Stan? Or is it just sports betting related to politics?
Well, I think it's both. Like, obviously, that socially valuable role that Ryan points out is true to some extent. I think Ryan would be very comfortable saying England is going to win the World Cup. It's coming home.
Hopefully, I think you'll agree.
President Trump is going to hand Harry Kane the trophy at the end of the tournament. But if his own money were at stake, he would probably not say any of that, because it's, of course, quite unrealistic to believe England will win the World Cup. At the same time, I think it's absolutely not true that the overwhelming majority of predictions on Kalshi or Polymarket provide us with socially valuable information. A lot of it is sports, and a lot of it is not even the outcomes of sports games, but very specific elements of games. And I don't think anyone who does not stand to benefit financially from Polymarket and Kalshi continuing to be regulated.
Let's talk about money, because we understand that Meta are planning to launch their own platform called Arena. But here's the rub: at launch, they're talking about a version that doesn't use money. Is that going to be the same? Well, people still use these sites.
One would imagine that there's some form of credits or something that enable you to do things on various Meta platforms and sites. So there could be slightly different incentives there, but maybe that's a way of trying to gather information without putting real money at stake, at least to start with. But I imagine over time, this looks like quite a lucrative industry. I think it's grown from the back end of last year, around 5 billion globally, to 24 billion in the month of April 2026. So this is a sector that's growing extremely quickly and looks to be extremely lucrative. So I suspect that Meta will diversify the way that they engage in that market over time.
Stan, do you think if Meta successfully gamifies the whole system without any kind of financial payouts, it'll be the same? It'll still get people going to these platforms?
Yeah, I don't think that quite satisfies people's urge to gamble. Right. I think you need at least some stakes to get that sort of adrenaline rush that people get out of gambling. I do think that drives a lot of the participation. Now, again, right, some predictions are socially useful. The reason why there's even a discussion of federal regulation of these activities is because, of course, for many investors, other market participants, it is often important to be able to hedge against future risks. And so if you think that a negative event for you is likely to happen, by betting on it happening, you can offset some of the downside you get if it materializes. So that's sort of the second valuable purpose that these markets could conceivably have.
All right, well, let's continue talking about the economic reality of all of this, because the volume by way of numbers, users, I mean, it's pretty staggering. But Wall Street Journal analysis shows that more than 67% of the profits go to just 0.1% of accounts. So, I mean, if the vast majority of users are losing money, Ryan, I mean, is that really a healthy market for the public?
Well, not for the individuals who are losing money, but in the markets where there is socially useful information from the price reflecting reality, actually getting to that price quickly, then it helps inform the rest of us to live our lives in a way which we understand the reality of it a bit better. So I actually engaged on one of these platforms last year when Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, were talking about spending cuts. There was a market in how much Doge would save the federal government in terms of reduced spending over a year. Now, the way that contract was designed was to say that it would pay out in the event that the total level of federal spending was lower at the end of last year than the year before. That was never going to be the case, but there were a lot of people who put a lot of faith in Elon Musk and were betting on that being the case. So I won a small amount of money from that, but I think that type of market, even though a lot of people were losing money, it was still providing information over time that showed that the idea that Doge was going to save the federal government substantial amounts of money, that looked really silly.
Right. The flip side is the real concern people have, which is that it can cause these markets can cause financial ruin for people who really get addicted to them and who do not have access to particularly good information. Right. That's, I think, the real concern that I think the president hinted at too.
Well, I think an important thing is we have to compare it to the real world. So in providing this kind of information through the prices, what are we comparing it to? The other way that we get information is through journalism, through polling, through surveys. Right. Those things can also influence public opinion and public behavior. And quite often people don't have a kind of stake in providing accurate information in a way that can distort people's decisions as well. So we have to not create a nirvana fallacy where we compare this to a perfect world, but the world that we really live.
Right, gentlemen, let me pause you there because I want to bring in some more details for you, because despite it being a relatively new concept, the perceived financial risk of prediction markets is still high. Analysis by Ipsos shows how financially risky people view prediction markets to be, and compare that to the risk of investing in cryptocurrencies and the stock market. Going back to you, Ryan, I mean, we are seeing, and Stan, you touched upon this, we are seeing a massive legal escalation right now, partially linked to these perceptions. I mean, why are state regulators trying to ban these platforms if federal agencies like the Commodity Futures Trading Commission are already overseeing them? What's the issue here?
Well, I think there's what we describe in economics as a bit of a bootleggers and Baptist dynamic here. So there are certain people who morally just think it's wrong to facilitate gambling in this way. And
bootleggers and Baptists. Okay, that's a good one. Okay.
So it's referring back to the Prohibition era. The two people that are in favour of Prohibition were people who were morally against people drinking, and the bootleggers who profited from people buying on the black market. And I think we've got a bit of that dynamic here in the sense of there are many people that just morally don't want as many people to gamble and don't want new opportunities to gamble. But states obviously have a vested interest in maintaining large amounts of gambling tax revenues. A lot of the gambling sites and betting sites have state licenses, and so they've already gone through those hoops and those processes. So they're lobbying state policymakers to, in effect, try and shut down a potential competitor. So there are different actors at play here.
Stan, do the states, do they have a point? Does this federal oversight leave a dangerous vacuum?
Yeah, I do think they have a point, and it's why federal courts so far have been split on whether the states or the federal government has the authority here. In principle, regulating gambling is just part of the states' general policing power. What the federal government argues now is that prediction markets, because they involve contracts, about an event that's going to happen in the future, can be regulated by the CFTC, as you said. But the language in the statute is not very clear on, prediction markets in particular. The context in which the statute was enacted was the response to the financial crisis. It was part of Dodd-Frank. And so, courts will have so far differed in saying whether that federal statute causes what we call field preemption, where the federal government completely takes over authority in a specific area and makes it illegal for the states to regulate.
Understood. Well, Stan, Ryan, let me bring in some more details now. Let's look at the uptake by generation, because prediction markets are shaping the way people understand and engage with things like politics, sport and the economy, as you've been hearing. But there is a distinct difference in the age groups investing. Analysis here by technology firm Paradigm shows that the overwhelming majority of people investing in prediction markets are under the age of 50. They also looked at who browsed the odds without investing any money, and the number of people above the age of 50 who were just browsing, well, that almost quadrupled. Ryan, I mean, the data shows that it's largely Gen Z and geriatric millennials like myself that are driving the boom. What is it about prediction markets that makes it appeal to a younger generation compared to traditional investing?
For many people, they're a new and exciting product, the evolving product that has only just come about. I think many older people who perhaps would have a flutter on sports or even politics or whatever, there's just more of a familiarity with dealing with a traditional bookmaker or a licensed gambling entity in a way that there's perhaps a bit more caution in engaging with a new firm that's doing things in a different way. So I suspect that's a large part of what's behind it, kind of fear of the unknown. But I don't know, maybe, do you have any other thoughts?
Well, I think in general, younger generations are more likely to engage in risk-taking behavior. We see that, I think, across fields. All of this activity takes place online, which is a much more natural environment, I think, for
we did also hear about a phenomenon called financial nihilism that exists amongst the young. They're so depressed about the prospects of ever owning a house that they're just betting wherever they possibly can. Slightly depressing. I mean, nevertheless, there are concerns that the younger generation are more susceptible to market manipulation or insider trading. Is that a valid concern?
I do think so, especially in the national security context that you highlighted earlier, where people inside the United States government or other governments give away information about activities that are going to happen for financial gain instead of preserving the information securely as they are supposed to do. And so in that sense, again, it goes both. Some hardline libertarians, I don't know if Ryan agrees with this, will argue that even in that case it is good because it produces socially valuable information. I think we have a whole set of complicated laws to keep secret and confidential information secret and confidential. And I think this does cause a risk. And of course, in the sports context, it's the same thing, right? A big concern around sports gambling has always been that players and coaches will gamble on games that they themselves.
Right, we'll get to that in a minute. Ryan, did you want to come in on something?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's another concern on national security issues, which is that, if somebody gets one of these contracts on the basis they have insider information, that price signal then might inform an adversary to the United States or the country that the person is participating in about potential activity by that country. So there's not just a problem in terms of somebody profiting themselves, they might actually be endangering national security in those circumstances. Right. So I think regulation of that is inevitable.
Okay, we'll continue to talk about that in a second, but I want you to draw your attention to this tree chart. You can see it on the wall behind you over there, gentlemen. Our viewers have it on their screen. So look, we've got Kalshi in green on the left, we've got Polymarkets in the blue. Obviously, the World Cup's underway at the moment, which explains this huge volume of people placing bets on the World Cup, along with other sports, the golf as well down here. But let me bring the cursor out of the way. Look at the blue. The vast majority of those bets are politically related. Democratic presidential nominee, the US presidential election, perhaps slightly more interesting. But then, if we go to this tiny little dot down here, I mean, I thought I had an extremely interesting life, but betting on changes in travel policy, Stan, I mean, it really indicates that anything goes when it comes to these kind of platforms.
Absolutely. And, in those, I mean, the more questions that you are that you can predict, that you can gamble on, I think also the greater the risk becomes that people can exploit their insider knowledge. Now, again, we may think that's good. I think for travel policy, there is a real case to be made that is very valuable information for people who are planning a trip. For example, the United States now has a long list of countries from which it's almost impossible to get a visa to enter the United States. That information is, of course, super important for people who are planning business or...
Okay, I'm clearly underestimating the value of that data.
Yeah, I think that's not a terrible one, actually.
Right, okay.
But it's remarkable looking at that, the scale of betting on politics relative to sports. I mean, I'd have thought that the gap would have been much bigger there. And I think there are different types of political betting. There's betting on the outcome of an election, which, is relatively benign, I think, but might produce some socially useful information. But if one of those political bets is something like, will this candidate drop out of the race by X date? That type of market, I think, is much more open to quite damaging kind of corrupt practices and insider trading.
Let me pause you both there for a second, because as we've been discussing, these prediction markets give people the ability to bet on pretty much everything, as you've just been seeing. But is that enough to tempt people to lay down some actual cash? Phil Lavelle's in Miami. He's been asking around.
Here in Miami, you may have heard there is a bit of a sporting contest taking place. But when it comes to spotting winners and losers beyond the World Cup, are people really prepared to bet on anything?
I'm old school. I'm not a big-time gambler. So not for me, but Junior here probably would.
Would you?
Yeah, I would love to bet. That stuff's fun. I love doing stuff like that.
Really? So you'd bet on like anything?
Yeah, I'd bet on anything, yeah.
What's the craziest thing that you've ever put money down on?
I haven't done anything crazy, but I'd be willing to do some crazy bets, yeah.
Would you ever put money on anything else? I don't know, like the weather being great or, the lottery numbers?
I don't bet.
No, you don't bet?
I don't bet.
Why is that?
I'm just very cautious when it comes to handing money out.
If you had to put money on it and somebody had said you would lose your passport and it would be handed back to you in Miami during the World Cup, what odds would you have put on that?
I would have given them 5,000 to 1.
That's what happened to this woman. Maybe she should have put money on it.
Here we go. Passport first.
Sorry.
We're reunited together.
Would you ever put money down on anything else, like, I don't know, the weather or the outcome of, a contest or something?
Probably not.
I'm listening to the game right now, and I've already heard, what's it, Kalshi or?
Kalshi.
I've already heard them like 3 times while I'm watching the Portugal game. Yeah, so it's getting bigger. I'm just not interested personally.
I'm a gambling lady. I've never won, but I am a gambling lady.
What about if there was, would you put money down on anything else? Like, for example, the weather has been really warm. Would you put $10 on the fact that it's going to be really warm for the rest of the tournament, or on like the outcome of, well, there might be a new Prime Minister in the UK. Would you put money down on that?
I can gamble on anything.
Of course, one thing that is predictably unpredictable here in South Florida, the weather. Predictable because you know it's going to be hot 24/7 at this time of year. Unpredictable because one minute it's blue skies, the next it is absolutely chucking it down. Put that in the context of a major sporting event like the World Cup. Get it right, there could be a lot of money to be made. Phil Lavelle, Al Jazeera, Miami, Florida.
There you go, the good people of Miami, although many of them appear to be Scottish there for the World Cup, of course. Ryan, looking ahead to the upcoming midterms, this will be the ultimate regulatory test. I mean, if these markets successfully predict the outcomes without any kind of major scandal, what then? Will this regulatory pressure evaporate?
No, but I think they'll go up in status, and I think it would be more likely that they'll have defenders who see the social value of them if that indeed is the outcome. And, that's really, one of the ways that they could benefit society is this kind of wisdom of crowds effect. So, you're laying down your money. It's not just the number of people, it's actually the confidence with which you're willing to bet on these outcomes. So we'll see. I mean, we have to compare it to pollsters, to focus groups, to analysis by experts. But if it does much better than those groups, then I think a lot of people will see the social value of it.
Stan, I mean, if the states win this battle to enforce their bans, I mean, does the entire prediction market, does that industry collapse, or does it move further underground?
I think the specific firms that currently operate under the federal framework, for them it will be extremely bad news. But we'll still have a large number of states that will keep these markets legal, more regulated, with more fees and with more tax revenue for the states. But I don't think it's going to disappear anytime soon.
Right.
It's of course important to remember, though, that those young people that you mentioned obviously have access to VPNs, and as long as these aren't banned in every country around the world, there's going to be opportunities for people to participate in these platforms. Now, that might be a bit more difficult in that financial regulation might be able to squeeze off them getting payouts or whatever, but a lot of young people will find a way.
That's how I had to do it in 2008 when InTrade was not legal here in the United States. It was the only place where you could bet on presidential
you were bending the rules, Stan.
Well, it was hard to get my money out. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, very, very lastly, final word. We've got literally 30 seconds left. Ryan, what would inspire you to use these sites?
Well, I already have used them, and it's when I have, I think, information or insight that I think is being missed in the price. So I look at them occasionally, and that's when I try to intervene.
Stand for or against?
Supportive, especially the election ones. I don't know, the sports gambling, maybe we should let the states regulate that. Yeah.
All right. Well, look, it's been an absolute joy wading through this fascinating topic with both of you. An absolute pleasure. Well, we, of course, have been joined by Ryan Bourne, public policy economist at the Cato Institute, and Stan Veuger, senior fellow in economic policy studies at the American Enterprise Institute. Well, that's all from the team here in Washington. Handing back to Alex Baird and Al Jazeera's global headquarters in Doha. See you soon.
Thanks, Neave. Now, if you've missed any part of this episode or want to watch our previous ones, head to our YouTube channel. Just search Al Jazeera English. We'll be back with a new edition on Friday at 18:30 GMT. That's 2:30 p.m. Eastern here in the United States. Until then, from the whole team, bye for now.